I get recognized as Honey Cummings more often than Valerie Willis all the time.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny because I was like scrolling through and I saw the fairy tale collection and I was like,
Yes.
I was looking at the cover and I was like, I've seen that cover before. And I don't know where I've seen it before, but it looks so like I saw it and I was like, I've seen that before. And I thought I owned it, but I don't own it, which was wild because I was like,
That's a fun ride. That's eight short stories of very spicy, humorous stuff. And
Ooh.
it's like the goat's gruff, right? And his friends like, come on, we're going to this orgy happening in the neighborhood up the road. And he's like, he's like, fine. There's a first time for everything. And he's like, oh, it's because you have to wear a mask and you can't use your real name. And he's like, well, what mask am I gonna wear? And he said, just use the mask from high school. He says, from the high school play, the goat's gruff. I said, the troll mask. No one wants to fuck a troll. It's that kind of humor. All,
I love
all
it.
the eight stories, it is just like they're like, is this really happening? Oh, we're really doing this.
I love it. That's awesome. That's my favorite.
Princess Peace bed. She has a birthday party. She's flirting with everyone. Everyone goes home and she starts finding sex toys around her apartment. And she's like, who the hell gifted me all these toys? She starts texting people from the party, trying to figure out who, what, where.
That sounds like a wild time.
It's an excuse to be absolutely. It's very hard to it's very hard to stay serious when you're writing. It started with sleeping with Sasquatch, okay? So
You
it's
know,
hard, you know,
that's
and
fair.
killing Chupacabra and Naked with Jersey Devil as one does. No, and I was like, these have to be humorous because I'm gonna be like a schoolgirl writing all this. So just I was, I wrote the P word. Right. But I
Me
did get
too.
brave. I did get brave last year as part of a contract with Yonder. I released a novel length work called Queen's Incubus, which just released last month in physical format. And I did have copies of the book, but I'm sold out. Like
Ooh.
I so because it's a reverse harem and it's because I was trying to explain to my one friend, I finally sent her a video of someone talking about it because she thought it was crazy. I said, for example, because we're co-writing a thing, I said, so is this going to be like a, MMFMN or, MFMMN? Or she's like, what the hell did you have a seizure? No, like this is a thing. Like I said, for example, Queen's Incubus is MMFFM. And she's like, why is there two F's? I'm like,
There's two ladies.
there's two ladies. There is a woman thrown in the mix of males in this reverse harem.
That is so funny. Oh my
It
God.
was sort of
Okay.
like, yeah, so it's been fun.
Great. All right, everybody, welcome back to a very fun and exciting, as you can already tell, episode of Booking It with me, Jonna, and my very, very special guest, Valerie Willis, author. Thank you so much for being here.
Woo! No, no problem. Thanks for being patient with me being late.
Oh, girl, my whole family is late, literally. I have one brother, like, I have four siblings. I have two older brothers, an older sister, and a younger sister. My oldest brother, he's on his own time zone. Like if he's like, I'll be there in 10 minutes, that means he's gonna be there 3 days from now.
Is he the one that you, when you do invite him to family events or important events, you have to tell them like an hour before everyone else in
No,
hopes that they've arrived on time because we have
no,
relatives like that.
no, he just shows up whenever. Like we can tell him like, hey, food, we're gonna eat at 2 o'clock. He he doesn't show up until like we like every year on Thanksgiving when we like bless the food, he's like, we bless the food without him. That's how late he is.
Yeah, we don't wait for that one. That's fine.
Like, you-
That
like,
happens.
you know what? Bless your own food.
No, this year I have to throw Thanksgiving at my house. So I'm
Ooh.
like, everyone's like, well, what do you want us to bring? I'm like, you know what? You know what we're gonna do? I'm just gonna do turkey, the mashed potatoes, two sides, some corn and green beans. Let's just call it
Mhm.
done. Everyone just bring dessert or finger foods or appetizers and whatever you prefer to drink. I'm
Ooh.
like, I'm keeping it super simple this year.
Mhm.
And you're like, oh, well, we used to, when grandma was alive, grandma's been gone for almost 10 years. And y'all, and none of y'all have thrown her Thanksgiving remotely close to her. I don't know why you would think I would.
LOL. It'd be like that. Look,
I'm
the
like, we are
only
eating on paper plates.
look, the only tradition I think we have is that we just eat at my mom's house, and then my younger sister makes my grandma's deviled eggs,
Oh, God. Yes.
and is that I don't know. I can't remember if Thanksgiving is a potato salad holiday in our family or not,
This is,
because
I
my
was, I'm just
dad,
Southern, growing up Southern style. So, yes, potato salad was at any gathering. It did not matter.
yeah, well, my sister also makes that, but like it's my dad's recipe, and like she's like,
Oh,
bro, it takes a lot. She was like, it's not hard to make it. She was like, it just takes a lot
yeah,
to make it.
a lot of chopping, a lot of beef.
Yeah,
And you
and
can't
like,
just throw it together and be done. You have to wait
mhm.
for the eggs to cool and the potatoes to
And
cool.
like she makes a bowl like this big.
Oh yeah, it's go big or go home.
Yeah, literally. So it's like a whole thing. So I have put myself in charge of dessert because I decided at the beginning of this year that my new thing would be baking. So
Oh,
yes.
so have you decided what dessert you're going for?
No, because we haven't even decided if we haven't
You don't
even
know which
decided
house
if
we
we're doing dinner yet.
go. My favorite things that because I usually bring desserts and appetizers because my father-in-law always gets impatient and she's always 2 hours behind finishing the turkey. So I started bringing because he gets
Classic.
angry because his sugar starts to go off the charts. So so I started bringing a combination of appetizers and like finger food type stuff. So the things that are I guess I've invaded with is what I call salami rolls. And all it is a thin slice of Genoa salami with cream cheese and a thinly chopped thinner spear of dill pickle rolled
Ooh,
up. Done. It's, I can make a pound of that stuff, no problem.
sounds pretty good.
And he eats it up. The other thing is I do pumpkin muffins because they're not too sweet and not too savory. So I always just bring because they always have butter, so I always
Mhm.
bring some cream cheese icing. So if they want more of a sweet dessert with it, or if they just want to eat it with their meal, they can do both. So that's my two recommendations
Oh,
for some
oh.
quick, easy Thanksgivingness that'll keep them calm while they wait for the turkey to finish.
You know what's so funny is it's never the turkey that's the last thing to come out of the oven. It's the ham. We're
Oh,
always waiting on the ham every single year. I'm like, who even eats this? Who is
the
eating the
crazy
ham?
thing, most of the time you buy the ham already pre-cooked, you're just heating it up.
Yeah, it just take like it's like always the last or we're waiting on the rolls because it's like we're gonna put the rolls in the oven and then it's like where are the rolls?
Well, that's because everyone's afraid to put everything together and cook at the same time, I think.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
coordination
yeah.
isn't what it used to be.
Dude,
So,
we're all just like, and we're like, Mom, did you even buy rolls? Like, they're in the freezer. They're not in the freezer. Yes, they are. Okay. It's a whole thing.
it's always panic. Yeah, I always have to show up at Thanksgiving and just take over the cooking and be like, there, everything's done. They're like, how'd you? And I'm like, I was my maiden name was Cook, so I had to learn. My dad was one of 16 kids. Those family reunions are no joke.
Oh my
I brought my
gosh.
husband to one when we first got married, And they were like, "Oh, you've never had Aunt Mary's dumplings before," because they're Jordan. There's heavy accents, and they're like, "You know what? Come on in here. We're gonna make you a bowl early so you can make sure you have some of Aunt Mary's dumpling, chicken and dumplings." And Justin's like, "Those kids were angry. Those teenagers." He's like, "I didn't expect young kids to be that obsessed about chicken and dumplings."
Oh
They're
yeah,
like, "Yeah,
no.
this is very serious."
It's
And then a certain aunt, they're like, "Don't, don't eat that casserole. Don't eat that casserole. That's from so and so. She don't keep a clean kitchen now."
oh my God.
It's that
Look,
kind of family reunion. I love it.
I
I
my
love every bit.
my favorite thing about family holidays is just the family drama.
It is. It's good.
It's just like a big old tea session. It's like, ooh, what happened? Ooh, what happened? Why did you and such break up? You getting married to who? What's going on?
So much is unfolding since the last time we spoke.
Literally. Oh my God, the amount of time. And then eventually someone gets into a big argument with our mom, and then they're like, well, I'm leaving. And then everybody, and then they storm out. And I'm like, you're gonna come back. You got kids here.
That used to be my father-in-law. When it's sugar, he's like, "Everyone, should just leave if there's no food." I'm
Very
like,
dad thing to do.
"Yeah."
That is such a dad thing to do. My dad always used to during Christmas time when we would have to like put up the tree or take down the tree. Because like when you're kids, it's like, okay, this is fun. But as you get older, it's like, I gotta do this. And at one point my dad was like, well, I'll just throw the tree out the front door since nobody cares about it. Like, yeah, okay, whatever, Dad.
No,
And
my like,
we got a new Christmas tree one year. And so he actually did throw the old Christmas tree out the front door into our front yard where there was like, I don't know, like 3 feet of snow. So like it just like landed and just sat on top of the snow.
that's fantastic. So we don't get snow here. I'm in
Ah,
Florida,
must be nice.
and there was a year, God, it's been almost six or so years ago. We had a freak cold front in February,
Mm-hmm.
and it started snowing in Jacksonville. And when I got the weather report, this is how epic mom mode kicks in. I said, "I've got a family emergency. I've got to go." And then your work's like, "Oh, okay." And I pulled the kids out of school. We all hopped in the car, and I drove them up to Savannah, Georgia, where they had 6 inches of snow, and for my kids to play in snow because I was not sure when I would ever get the chance for them to get to see snow.
Honestly,
So
that's fair.
that's
You can
cool.
bring them to Indiana. They will see plenty of it.
Oh God, yes. In April it snowed when I was visiting Indianapolis, and I'm like, "What is this white stuff? Where did I woke up in a weird place?"
Yeah, no. You can go to Colorado. I have a friend who lives in Colorado and she's always posting like how much snow. There's snow there right now. I was like, oh my
Oh, I
God.
know. People are already that's what my husband said. He's like, they're already posting the ice scraping reviews.
Yes,
He's like, "Ugh."
dude.
So it's fine.
Forget
It's great.
dude. I
Sorry,
remember
we got off on a tangent of Thanksgiving and family drama and snow.
honestly, this is pretty par for the course for me.
Excellent. And I'm fitting right in.
Absolutely. I can tell you it will in fact happen again as we go on. So what is your newest book that you have out?
The newest book literally just came out on the 8th, and that's The Champion's Lord under my pen name VC Willis.
Got
This
it, got it,
is
got it.
a male dark fantasy romance. It's technically a prequel to my Princess Priest. So we get to follow Big Brother and his toxic relationship habits. So it's a little edgier. He's short-tempered, narcissistic, self-loathing, and so is the love of his life. And they see that in each other, and that's they have moments where they're like, "No, I deserve to be punished more than you. You deserve to be loved. I don't deserve to be loved, but I'm gonna love you to show you, make a lesson out of
You
this."
know, classic,
So it's
classic
a
love story.
and it was funny because I wrote the Princess Priest eons ago, and it was just a manuscript sitting collecting dust because I was too nervous as a heterosexual housewife with 2 kids to like release a male romance. I'm like, I don't know about this. A friend of mine, Vanessa, she was like, she read it and then she goes, holy crap, like this is something about like you should do something with this. And I'm like, I don't know. And she's like, well, read the Captive Prince trilogy by C.S. Pacat, which is absolutely, if you like male romance and you have not read that trilogy, it is chef's kiss. Strong writing, strong storytelling. It's hard to find fault with those three books because it just pops, keeps you on the edge of the seat. The sexual tension is phenomenal through three books, which is intense. Um, and then I was like, oh, my story's fine. So then worked on it and I decided to hand it to a queer friend, Brandon Mead, who's also an author. And I said, can you read this and make sure that I did not inadvertently throw in a stereotype or red flag? And at like 3 a.m., he's like, girl. And he sends all these chili peppers. And I was like, well, he's like, he's like, I'm impressed. He says, you need to publish this. And some of the biggest responses I get from the Princess Priest, unlike Big Brother, is that everyone's so surprised that one, both both main characters are very masculine. So there's no very femmy guy at all in the picture. And two, the fact that it's not a toxic relationship at all. And then it's a slow burn for book one, so they don't break down that wall until the very end. So, but it
Oh,
was
you're one of those authors. You're gonna make me wait till the
that's
last 70 pages of the book.
and normally it's not that bad. But the circumstances and everything unfolding makes sense. And the
Yeah.
tension and the things that unfold would not have been so sweet. I think one reviewer said it was like finishing a fine steak, so you want more, but it was satisfying at the same time. I'm like, oh, that is such a awesome review. Like, dang, dude. So yes, that is my latest release, and those are sort of labors of love because I'm a big fan of male romance, and I was like, well, how about I write one? I want two masculine guys, and then you just kiss.
I
No,
understand.
he should not remind you of the cheerleader from your youth. He should be his own man.
I understand. I understand. I know. Sometimes when I'm like reading, I've read a few like males, and I'm like, can y'all just kiss already? Because what are you doing? Like, why is there so much angst? Just kiss each other. Stop it.
Much brooding. I maybe that's it because I love brooding. I, broody angsty boys. That's my jam.
Oh,
And
I
I
mean,
think
like, I love it's just so my thing with like even not even just like male, like any type of romance book when they're like this close to kissing, just they're so close, and then someone's phone rings or someone walks in and they're like, oh, the tension's broken. What do you mean? No, it's not. You can still kiss.
yeah,
Stresses
you
me
can
out.
still kiss and still hold tension. And that's what I liked about the Captain Prince trilogy, because there's like all this royal intrigue and risk of a secrets being revealed. And then you're like questioning, does he already know? Is that why he's making this? Like, there's so much happening in that trilogy. And then with mine, that was like one of the things I discussed was like the tension. And there is a moment where they do kiss way sooner, and it just adds to the tension because it's
But in
like that's not
short,
how I mean, it's it is a lot of fun because I'm revising book 4 for the Princess Priest. Book 3 is on the editor's desk, and I had some beta readers like barrel through the rough book 3 and 4 because I'm panicking because the classic author, second guessing myself. And my the comment that they gave me at the end of finishing book 4 is she's like, they're such a sweet tender couple. And I'm like, John and Dante didn't lose. They've been through hell and back, but they didn't lose it. Because I didn't realize how hard it is to have a dark fantasy setting and then keep the relationship non-toxic. It's a hard balance. I'm trying.
yeah, yeah. Any anytime there's dark things, it's very hard not to be toxic.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. Constantly fretting over one another. I think that's part of it. They're like worried with each other, and then they say something and they're like, don't you ever say that. Like, let's now we have to sit down and talk about this.
Classic. What
Classic.
a classic love story. I love it. Oh man. So that you said that's the prequel to The Princess Priest, which
Yep.
is the um
Champions Lord. So the
yeah,
big brother.
I love that cover. So pretty.
Thank you. This is designed by Autumn Sky, who is a graphic designer and typesetter um, that I managed to teach a lot of my skills to. And the inside of the book is even inspired by it quite a bit. So it is a
I'm
good
finna buy that. I'm on your website right now.
time. He's like, and done?
Look,
No,
you just
no. And
I
that's the crazy thing. My life is surrounded by books. So I'm a typesetter by trade. And I push the print on demand to its limitations. So all my books have these gorgeous interiors. I know, look, I'm gonna keep showing off for a bit.
you should because I this is
This is in Cedric. So this is my first main book I ever wrote. I'm up to 5 books in that series. So if you like J.R. Ward and Sherilyn Kennan type storylines with mythology and broody angst, there's a lot of that involved. And even even the Honey Cummings books have some fun little
oh my
chapter
gosh.
headers with a
I love it. Oh, so jealous.
so it's a good time.
She said, I'll be working them printers, okay?
I'm working. I'm working. I'm making I pushed them to their limitations. It was so funny because I got I decided to come out of raising the kids were going to school finally. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to work, but I want to do strictly stuff for books. And I grabbed a job as a typesetter. I come in and I'm like looking around and I'm like, because I thought I had more to learn. So this is more of a traditional publisher. I was like, I've been doing self-publishing. I've been, doing contract work and freelance work for many, many, many years. And I was like, I'll be a typesetter for traditional side for a bit. And I come in thinking I have all this stuff to learn. And I come in and I'm like, why are we doing it this way? This is like a 10-year-old practice, and the program automatically does this for you. It's like, I'm like, you're spending like I said it should and I'm like, how many hours? Like, and it was crazy because eventually 3 months of being there, they ended up making me the lead typesetter. So I got to restructure the entire department with a team of 5 people. They were all working themselves 60 hours a week almost and getting roughly um I think it was like 15 to 20 books done in a week. And when I was done, everyone was just working their 40 and producing like 35 to 50 books a week.
Okay, talk about proficiency.
Right? And not working people to death. The
Mm-hmm.
files were having less errors. There was less
Mm-hmm.
typeset issues, less corrections. Ebooks were going through without a problem suddenly. And they're like, what did you do? I said, it's called updating processes to match your software advantages. like you have the software, you have the tools, you're just not using them to
Right.
100% capacity. I said, because it's amazing um because they used to have to for ebook design take the manuscript and add all these special labeled styles, like if you're
Mhm.
using an H1, H2, H3 and all this stuff and rename all of that. Now you don't even have to do that, that it automatically does it in the XML coding behind both Word and InDesign, and it just does its thing. And if you want to label it differently, there's a way in paragraph styles to label something differently. It's amazing what the programs do. Um, so like a book like Cedric, depending how focused I am and how many interruptions, no more than 4 hours, and I have the ebook, the paperback, and the hardcover done. It can be crazy. But usually I take my time, so I'm taking longer than that. But like if I'm in a setting that requires me to go, go, go,
Mhm.
yeah, it's crazy, crazy how sufficient you can get that process down to.
I love that. I'm all about efficiency. Like I it was
I was feeling bad. I'm like, what do you mean this team works 60 hours a week? No wonder they look like they washed up on the shores of Styx. Like, Jesus.
no wonder everybody's on edge all the time.
I'm expecting the ferryman to show up and demand the Jesus.
Good
Because
Lord.
my mom thought books were dumb. So I would have to hide in my closet with a flashlight to read books. And it was like, and then she'd come in and I got caught the first time and that was rough. So the second time I got smart, I put the book in the Bible and I'm like, would you really punish me for reading the Bible?
In the
And
closet
just
in the
so
dark.
listen, just so I know I could talk the talk because my grandmother was married to a preacher, right? So I read the Bible twice and tried to memorize certain sections that I liked of it so I could just rattle off blah, blah, blah. That ended up saving my butt later at a job because I ended up working at one point for a Christian publishing company. And we had a really, really nasty client. And I said, look, this client is being a bigot and very racist, and I refuse to expose my team to this. And
Mhm.
I will not work with him because he's already declared me whatever he assumes me to be.
Mhm.
And he would be very shocked if he saw me a picture of me because I'm very opposite of what he thinks I am. And I still will not service him. And my operations manager at the time was a preacher and he's like, well, and blah blah blah, it says this and this is why you need to do this. And like a reflex from my past, I was like, well, in Matthews it says this, and math numbers it says this, and in Leviticus it says that, and that says I don't have to do anything according to God. And he was like, what? And he's and everyone in the meeting just goes like you could not hear anyone breathe because no one had ever pushed back when he's
Oh.
done that. And I was like, nope, I grew up in a family of preachers. I know how to roll with this. And he was like, and then you just saw him slowly take out his phone. He says, well, I guess I'm gonna go cancel. And he walked out. Everyone was like, what did you do? Dude, like, I didn't know you were a Christian, Val. I said, it's none of your business. This is a workplace. And I am
Business is the workplace. And she just spouted off like 15 Bible quotes.
and they're like, what? What? I said, I grew up in a family of preachers. Like my great grandmother, like we're talking about Florida cracker level, right? So she's
Ooh.
like, we lived off of a clay road and the family lived off the clay road for many years. And when the preacher died, her and her sister took over the church for 5 years. And this, we're talking about a hand-built church in the middle of orange groves kind of vibe. They were fruit
Mhm.
pickers and things like that. So it was, I grew up with that kind of mentality, all around. My great grandmother was something else because every Sunday she'd be playing her piano and inviting people over and singing hymns all day. Like it was a party every Sunday. So that's what I grew up around. And it could not get any more southern and Florida-ness than that. And now I write Sleeping with Sasquatch.
You know, sometimes things just go the other way, you know?
Like my great grandmother said, she was a preacher. She says, life will take you where you need to go, not where you want to go. And I guess this is where I needed to be, right
And I
here.
mean, it doesn't make you, I mean, like if you are a Christian or whatever your faith is, your dominant denomination, it doesn't make you any less of that just
No,
because you just so happen to write a little bit of smut. That's not how that works.
because every grandmother owned Fabio at one point.
Uh, I mean, honestly,
460 plus covers.
really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. I was literally just talking to
460.
my friend about him the other day.
And you know what's crazy? Some of the new laws that went into effect this year now make it where those covers would not be allowed without carding people to 18 and older.
That's wild.
That's wild. That's why I had to change these covers. Though I like these new covers.
They're
I used to
pretty.
have Saucy Torso Man on here.
Mm.
And now I can't because I would have to card people at the table. And I'm like, that's crazy because that's probably my lowest spice level. It's about a 3, sometimes dips its toes in 4 and 5, depending on the scene throughout that series. And I'm like, that is my tamest, tamest of books. And I have to card people because there's a naked torso. And I'm like, no, we're not doing
My
this.
question is, you want me to card people? I can't do math.
I can't,
I can't do math.
I can't. I would have to have like one of those from the bar, the
Yeah.
clock.
Or like the things from the airport that you just like put in there and like, yeah, they're good.
Good. Scan. Okay. It's just like at the club. Now they just
No.
scan it. They're like, oh, okay. It's a party here.
Be like, oh, you'll be 18 tomorrow. I'll come back tomorrow. I can't do anything
I
today.
can't, nope, nope, can't do anything today. But yeah, no, and it sucks. I know there was I think it's a civil lawsuit between the big five and some of the states that did that because all the bookstores, because they also made it where not only did they have to card people, and that's why when you walk in Barnes and Noble right now, they all look the same. It's because of two laws, actually. So you can't have naked torso. The other one, and I know Texas is one of the states, if the person who either checked out the book from the library or bought the book from a bookstore is offended by the material that's in it, they can sue, rightly sue the library or bookstore for the content within the book that they chose to buy. So when those two laws started gearing up to go live this year, there was a huge return season in December, November, December, and January for a lot of publishers. So like all the LGBT content went rushing back. Anything with risque themes or covers went back, and it was just like this whole. So a lot of losses ended up being incurred even with the big five because of it. So they're fighting back, but if anyone has a chance fighting back on an actual law passed in a state, it's going to be them. They've got money and lawyers and teams. So, but for us small guys, we'll just change I'll just change the cover and add trigger warnings on the the blurbs and cover everyone's butt the best way I can. And just know that I have a higher chance of getting returns on my male romance more than anything. So
yeah. That's so wild to me. I just can't. You know what? I'm not gonna.
yeah, I know. It's a crazy world out there, and all I could do is abide by the rules.
Yeah, basically. It really like sucks because I mean, there's a lot of this stuff is just it's more about making your readers feel seen and making them feel valid in their feelings and things like that. But you know,
it doesn't seem to be stopping readers from seeking us out.
oh,
Like when
absolutely.
I am at a physical book event and my best-selling books are the saucier and the LGBT stuff, it makes my heart feel good.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
like, all right, like these are my readers. That's who matters more than anything
Oh
else.
yeah. I when I go places and I've never been to like a book convention and I want to go so bad.
They're very different from a regular convention.
I know. And that's why I want to go because
I
I just
will recommend like if you want a saucy one to go to, Smut Lovers by Nikki Rome, the one she throws here in Orlando, is phenomenal, so well organized. I mean, there's nothing. I didn't make it this year, but like my fellow erotica writer, Allie Whip, she's like, there's nothing like. She texts me. She's like, there's nothing like attending a workshop at 10 in the morning about properly spanking a woman on stage.
honestly, that's fair.
I mean, but it also shows that, as even erotica writers, we're always constantly doing workshops and webinars. Like I may not live that lifestyle that I portray in my books, but at
Mhm.
least I've taken the time to research and ask and do what I need to do to make sure that I'm not misrepresenting even their
Yeah.
lifestyle.
Yeah,
So,
and like you also don't want to spread like false information either.
oh God, no.
Yeah,
God, no.
so like I totally understand that. When I was in college, am I college? Yeah, I was in college when like 50 Shades came out, and like that just had everybody in like a huge uproar. And I was like, first of all, like like me back then scandalized. Like, oh my God. Me now is like that's tame compared to some of the stuff I've read in like the past 10 years because oh my God.
There's yeah, dark mafia romance has totally
Girl,
been blowing past that mark for
girl,
years. For years.
girl. Look, don't get me started. But I just remember like someone, one of my friends, we're not friends anymore, but they were like going off on me because I said I was reading that book, and they were like, "Oh, like it's all of that's it's like spreading false information, and there's no consent. There's this, there's that, da, da, da." And I was like, I got so mad, and I just started spouting off. I was like, "Yes, there is consent. What are you talking about? She explicitly says." Yes, I want to do this. She signs the contract. She does this. She does that.
She
And
signs a
like,
contract.
they're
Yeah.
right. I was like, and I was like, there's safe words, and there's this, and there's that, and there's this, and there's that. Like, I was just going off, and they were like, okay. And I was like, don't come at me about
And,
something that
and
I'm
just so you
reading.
know, this same uproar happened when everyone found out Anne Rice wrote that erotica set with the Sleeping Beauty that had no proper care, or
Mm-hmm.
we're like, oh, this is painful,
Yeah, yeah. So
you know.
like,
So yeah, no.
yeah,
And of course I have like the older covers of the initial it's Anne Rice, just so you know, because probably the sales weren't great because it was a bit rough. Just literally. Oh,
sounds like Anne Rice just needed to. It sounds like she just had to get something
she
off of her
dabbled.
chest.
Look, she was a hell of a storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know her fantasy fiction, Christian fiction, when she had a come to Jesus moment and then she went away from Jesus because it got too extreme, is still one of her in the top 10 for fantasy Christian fiction. Yeah. Um, and it was always interesting. She had a wonderful Facebook Live, and someone had asked her, and I love her answer for this. First off, they asked her what her writing routine is. She says, well, I have a certain set of pajamas and I have to have a cup of coffee. And then she shows us this little wardrobe of the same set of pajamas and a coffee pot next to the computer, right? But then the next question she got was a hard-hitting question, which is, you know, um, and this is something I think all authors struggle with, especially with imposter syndrome. She says, do you think you can write, do you ever wish to, or have ever thought about rewriting Interview with a Vampire? And she goes, of course. Do I think I can write it better now? Absolutely. Because I'm a better writer. Of course you
Mm-hmm.
should feel that way. And then she says, but look what the book has achieved for what I knew at the time and what skill level I was at the time.
Yeah.
She says, that book's fine. I have other stories I wish to tell before I go. And it was just such a eye-opening thing, right? It kind
Yeah.
of goes with the fact that, you can't share a story unless you release the story.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you can't tell more stories until you let go of the first.
Yeah.
So
100%.
it was some sagely words from a epitome of vampire romance and dark fantasy.
Interview with a Vampire. What a classic.
I think my favorite was Armand, though.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know if I've actually, I'm sure I probably owned some Anne Rice books in my day, but actually reading them, I couldn't tell you if I actually read any of them.
They got dark at times and gruesome.
Look, Anne must have been, she must have just been going through it, okay? Like she must have just been having a time,
But
you
now
know?
it has a HBO retelling that is,
Mm-hmm.
oof, that's
Mm,
spicy. It's
I see. Mm. I got
Oh,
HBO Max.
you girl, you should watch it. It's good.
Ooh.
It's a good retelling, and it's you have to. If you've never read the books, you're not going to feel the herky jerkies of the retelling and reimagining of it.
Hmm.
Goodness gracious, the actors who play Louis and oh my God, Lestat are awesome because the Lestat guy's French accent. Oh, I'm like, it's good. It's good. And then the BDSM stuff. There is a movie on Netflix called Love and Leashes. It is inspired by a K-drama webcomic. Totally recommend it. It's not like spicy, but it's a fun story. And it's very true and sincere to the lifestyle there.
Yeah.
So those are my recommendations. You should
Thank
watch
you.
the new Interview with the Vampire and just enjoy eye candy. And in this, like I said, but the storytelling and acting is glorious.
Okay. Look, I love a good. I
It's
I'm
definitely
not
more as a male romance. So
okay. I mean, I don't know. I ain't knocking your love. Do you, baby? You love a man? Good for you. You love a woman? Fantastic.
just as long
I
as you
don't
do it in
care.
a saucy, sexy, dark vampire way, it's great.
Look, man. You love a sexy vampire? Do you, baby? Even better.
No, I mean, like early on in my career, like when I was drafting Cedric the Demonic Knight, right? And I'm like, oh, he's gonna be part incubus and part vampire. And I finished the rough draft and I'm reading through the rough draft. I'm like, there's not one sex scene. I said there will be riots. They would be I'd be burnt at the fire because I was so nervous about writing saucy. This is how far I've come. I was so nervous of writing saucy scenes that I just skipped that part. While roughing it out. I was like, no, I'm like, this is not gonna work.
She
This
said,
is,
I'll write those last.
I'll just add them in the end. Like, while writing a Honey Cummings book, one time my husband walked in and I did this and palmed my monitor and knocked it off the desk. He's like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, I just don't need you to think that I'm into this. I'm like, I do not. Later, he's like, I've been selling your books at the bar. And I'm like, what? He says, I think everyone thinks I'm a sex god. And of course, Honeycombings was not my idea. We
Oh
were at
man.
a cafe with my writing critique partners, and they bestowed the name on me. And they're like, look, it's not taken on board. I'm like, stop, y'all. Uh, it makes me so mad though because Honey Cummings gets so much more attention than my I've been Valerie Willis for like 15 plus years. I've only been Honey Cummings since 2020. So what, 4 years?
Oh man. I'm
and,
sobbing.
and I went, like I was telling you earlier, I went to the Indiana Comic Con with this
Hmm.
group of big authors, John Jackson Miller, who writes Kenobi, and Casey
Hmm.
Candido, who does Supernatural and Alien and Star Trek, like all these big names. And they had pulled me off panels, and I was like, dude, I can't sell myself among A-listers if you don't give me at least one panel. So they invited
Right.
me to their first panel on Friday. So it's got, John Jackson and all these big guys, and then me. And I'm like, oh, and they're like, oh, you brought your book? I said, yeah, so they know which book belongs to me. Like the book's gonna be more memorable than me. And then this first giant group of friends, there's like 6 women come in, they sit down on the front row, they look up, they make eye contact with me, and they're like, Honey Cummings. And I'm like, I am not here as her.
I
And
am
then,
Valerie right now.
I was like, all right. They're like, would you write under another pen name, a more famous pen name? Like, apparently more famous. They're like, she was so funny on the Boy Beasties panel at Dragon Con a few months ago. She called dinosaur erotica refreshing. I was like, no, people find it refreshing. I it's so it's, you know, you see how red my face turned? That this will always happen. It's a reflex. I can't
Oh
stop
my God.
but it's not the craziest thing that's happened to me in Cummings. I think my first oh God, my business partner Erica Lance. This is her fault. she 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 calls me and she says, "Hey, would you like to be on a panel?" I'm like, "Oh, I love panels." And she's like, "Well, are you sure? Because this is about writing sex scenes and different heat levels and how you know." And she says, "And you're the only one I know who knows enough about the craft and what those differences are. I would love to have you be on the panel with us." I didn't. She must have told me, but I was like, "Ooh, panels!" Like a dog squirrel. And so we arrive, and as we're walking in, I see this big banner, and it's FetCon or Fetish Con, and I was like, "Whoa, whoa!" And they're like, "Yeah, this is where we're speaking of the panel." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "I can't be here." They're like, "No," and I'm like, "No, I promise. Now I gotta do it." And I was like, they're like, "Okay, what name are you going to use?" And I was like, "No, like my other name's Valerie Willis." They're like, "You can't use your real, it can't be the same as your real name here. And that's one of our policies." And I was like, "Oh." And then Erica behind me goes, "Val, use your other name." And I'm like, "No, no, it's not public yet. No, no one knows it's me." I mean,
She said, that is my secret identity.
and I'm trying to say it to him, and I'm like, and I'm like, "You got a sticky note?" And I write it down, and the guy looks at the sticky note where I wrote Honey Cummings, and he goes, "Nice." We're trying to make it to the panel room, and I'm like, Erica's like, "What are you looking at?" I said, "Well, normally when I said looking straight is dangerous because these people are naked for the most. And if I look down, I see more than what I bargained for." So up is eye position. I'm like, and then this like 6-year-old guy walks past us with a horse mask and a saddle and the whole get up. And I'm like, I don't even want to know. But I will tell you that panel was so much fun. They asked some of the best questions and they were so insecure. They're like, "Well, I don't know if I can portray it correctly." And I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, I've talked about this subject a few times at the Royal Public Library, of all places, because I get asked on romance panels all the time. I'm like, "You guys live the lifestyle. These women are guessing over here, and they're not even questioning whether they portrayed you incorrectly. And
Right.
you're over here and you live the lifestyle. You're better, be a little bit more confident." I said, "This is called imposter syndrome. Welcome to being authors." This is the first phase.
Yeah.
Um, and it was just crazy, but that saying, just imagine the audience in their underwear or naked.
It's pretty true for you.
I've been in that room. It does not.
It didn't work.
It makes it difficult for eye contact for sure.
Valerie walking in, like, man, these rafters, they really need a dust in
fishnet,
here. Oh my gosh.
fishnet shirts hide nothing. So, but no, a great community. Like I said, I'm not so much of a brood that I'm not afraid to go into these environments, but I'm very bashful at the same point, and I don't know. I'm a curious schoolgirl, and I would giggle and I would make, yeah. I'm like, I got to keep it together. Just where are you looking? I'm praying. Let's just
I'm asking the Lord for guidance currently.
I
Thank you.
keep a serious face. I'm here as a professional.
Yeah, no, I definitely like, I probably couldn't go to a convention like that either because I'd be like,
I know.
and honestly, like, it wouldn't,
In your room.
It wouldn't even be like that. I would just be like looking like I probably wouldn't even look up. I'd be looking at everything. I'm like, oh my God, what is this? Oh my God, what is that? Oh my God, tell me about this.
And they're really good at catering to that curiosity there. They
Oh,
have
I
so
bet.
many workshops. Like Saddle Play 101 was where the man was going into because I was like, what the hell is he like what is going on
That makes sense.
in that room? But it was an interesting experience. And like I said, I was like, oh, panel.
She didn't even hear, she heard the word panel and she was like, I'm there.
I'm there. I love talking with other authors and encouraging them to write. Sure, I'll talk about sex scenes to people who are probably more skilled than I have ever imagined to be.
Did oh my gosh. I know that's something that I struggle with too, is like when I want to write like a spicy scene. I'm like, how do I even do that? How do I even go about it?
Get the Barbies out.
Look, I'll
Especially
tell
the
you.
gymnastic Barbie who's more articulated.
Stop it. Look, I had Barbies, but I was not allowed to have Kens.
They knew what they were doing.
Literally, my parents were like, well, it was
Or
mostly my
my
dad. I don't even think it was my mom.
my sister was the one with the Barbies, and the first thing she did with that Ken doll was strip him down.
We gotta see him. We gotta see those abs, man. What do you mean? Gotta see those Ken doll abs. Yeah, no, my
God.
I think one year my neighbor bought me a Ken doll for like my birthday or for like Christmas or something. And like so I was like, oh my God, a Ken doll. Like I've never had one, right? And like I don't know what I was doing. Like I was playing with the Barbies and I like had Barbie and Ken, like they were hanging out or whatever. And somebody like called me out of my room. And so I just like laid that, like, you're a kid, so you just like lay them down or
Yeah.
whatever. You're just like, all right, I'll be back. So I got up and I got to do something. And then I just hear my dad in my room going, what the? And I'm like, what's the matter? I'm a kid. What's the matter, Dad? Why are you yelling? Da, da, da. He was like,
How dare you
what
have
are these?
Ken dolls in your room?
Literally, he was like, what is this Ken? He was like, what are these dolls? And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, it's just a Ken doll. I never saw that Ken doll again.
No, no. See, my sister Barbies dated my Ninja Turtles.
Okay. So
So
I can see.
much better.
You
I mean,
know,
they like
that's
pizza, you know?
who doesn't like pizza?
They're ninjas.
They can protect her.
They could protect her from the Pomeranian.
But they are teenagers,
They
and
are
that seems a
teenagers. There was a level
little
of innocence. Yes.
problematic to me.
Technically, Barbie's a teenager.
Is she a
Yeah.
grown up, isn't she? I don't know.
She was styled after a 15-year-old, I think, if I remember
Yeah,
right.
she was styled after the person's the God, what's her name? Ruth.
Can't remember.
I know
I,
her
I
first name
just
is Ruth.
I just have enough of that random fact floating around in the ether here that I know that much.
Yeah.
I know enough to get myself in trouble.
Oh gosh, how much did I love Barbies as a kid so much? And when they came out with the Barbie movie, oh, I lost my life. I thought I was gonna die. I was like, "What?
God, what movie was it? The Fall Guy? Have you watched that yet?
No, I haven't seen it
That is
yet.
an amazing action rom-com.
I heard it's really good. Like I heard
He's
Ryan
so good.
Gosling like kills it in that.
Oh my God, he does.
I just love
He
Ryan
does.
Gosling.
I've watched it like 4 times. That in
Ooh.
The Lost City with Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum.
Is that funny?
Oh my God, hilarious. Because he's a book model. Well, first off, as a writer, you should definitely watch it because we went to the theater and me and my friends could not breathe because there's a scene where she's like takes off the thing and she's been kidnapped and she goes, "Are you the guy who wants pictures of my feet?" And I I sent screenshots to the two friends I'm with, and they were like, "What?"
Stop it.
I'm like, it's a thing. I'm like, whoever wrote this script is clearly a romance author. And no,
Clearly. That's
no.
that's so funny.
And
Yeah,
the
no.
sexual innuendos that the villain says with this, I don't know how Daniel Radcliffe kept a serious face because you're like, and then Channing Tatum as like a very uppity, like,
Yeah.
oh God, I'm dirty model.
Oh my God.
Good times.
That sounds like a fun time.
Those are great
I
rom.
I think I wanted to see that, and then I don't know what happened. You know, life
COVID
happens.
was still around. So
Yeah, I know. I think it's on
it's on,
Eva.
I think it's on Netflix now. One of
I'll have to look. I think I saw it somewhere. I think it was like Peacock or Prime, maybe.
Prime, maybe. About both. I'm like, I'm showing my support. They're fucking freaking phenomenal. Good times there. And plenty of eye candy.
Oh yeah, I mean, we love literally when they announced that Ryan Gosling was going to be Ken for the Barbie movie. I was like, he's perfect. He is the perfect Ken.
I it and in my there was an interview. So there's an interview where someone was asking him what his favorite smell was, and I can't remember what night show he was on or late show he was on, but he's like dog's paws because they smell like corn chips. And my husband overhears this, and then he calls the dog over,
Oh my God.
and he smells the dog's paws. This is my Ryan Gosling story, and he goes, "They do, honey. They smell like popcorn or corn." Dudley, he starts calling the other dog over, and the other dog's like, "You ain't doing that to me."
Dog's paws do smell like corn chips.
Apparently. So Ryan
Like
Gosling has started a new habit in this household that I don't know what to do with.
your husband's just going around sniffing the dog's paws, like,
Even my older one, he's like, it does. It so, like I'm like, do you realize where that dog's been? Like, because you just walked them. So you know.
he said, I don't care. I wanted to see if they smelled like corn chips.
Right? And so I'm like, all right. I'm like, I didn't know you overhearing my video of it's
Dude,
fine. It's fine.
honestly, like men are ridiculous, but sometimes they do just like the funniest shit.
I know. I
Because
know.
only a man would think to, you know what? I'm gonna go smell this dog's paws. Like, why would you,
He's
why
like,
did that
really?
literally?
You probably wouldn't have been able to sleep all night unless he had done it. Good Lord. It's fine.
Valerie, you're so fun.
I try to be, man.
I
Life's too
love it.
short otherwise.
Felt that in my heart. Okay, so you said your first book was Cedric, right?
Yep. Cedric the
Okay.
Demonic Knights.
What brought Cedric to your brain and why did you decide to publish him?
Okay. So the first novel I was really working on was Rebirth from high school. I had started like 50,000 words. It was a notebook I passed around in people's lockers. I had multiple copies. Went to my 20-year high school reunion and everyone's like, yeah, I still have one of the folders. And it was like, whoa, holy cow. But I
That's
ran
commitment.
into someone 5 years after high school and they were like, yeah, did you ever finish the Houghton story? I know you were planning a trilogy out of that. And I was like, holy shit, you remember my character's name from high school? So I was like, okay, well, maybe I should try to finish the story. So I was trying to finish the first novel. Life hit me.
Mhm.
Ended up, it was 2009. The bubble burst. My house went from having equity to no equity, and then wanting to up the price of our mortgage. We both got laid off, and then I ended up pregnant with our first child after 3 years of trying, and then got skin cancer almost a month later. So I hit rock bottom and
Mhm.
found myself regretting not finishing that book. I started looking into because I knew writing as a hobby and writing professionally are two totally different things. What you learn in high school and what you know about writing means nothing when you have to write professionally because there are certain things that you do and don't do. And that's considered the difference between hobby writing and professional writing.
Mhm.
And I realized that Rebirth, I didn't have enough skill set or know how of writing the correct way to revise Rebirth successfully. So then I was like, well, screw it. I'll write a story with this new knowledge from start to finish and see what I get and work on developing my style and
Mhm.
understanding. and I had a graphic novel idea and a lot of little snippets of comics that I drew around the same time in high school as I was doing Rebirth of this dark fantasy vampire incubus kind of storyline. And so that is how I came about writing Cedric and pushing to publish it first because it was basically me building my sea legs as an author with the intent of being an author. So I did finish the trilogy. It's a dark YA urban fantasy rebirth series. It's over here above my head. Um, so that was like ode to past Val and getting back to what I used to do all the time, uh,
Hmm.
kind of scenario. And of course, now today, Cedric, I think it was last year, I released at the beginning of the year King Incubus, which was book 5, and I'm
Hmm.
working on the next 2 for it. I'm outlining them. I'm trying to untangle a mess I've created for myself and figure out
Hmm.
how I want to tell it and what order to tell it. Because like book 4 and 5, Artemis and King Incubus is fun because in 4 we're following Cedric, Angeline, and Roma Santa and the guys on their quest in the underworld of the Fey realm.
Hmm.
And then King Incubus, we're seeing what is happening at the same time in the mortal realm with Lilith and Tony. And it's funny because she's popping in and out of the underworld, so they're crossing paths, and you're realizing how many times they cross paths and all the weird shit that kept happening to waylay them was part of her waylaying them because she's like, he's gonna be so pissed when he comes back and finds out I let this happen. It's one of those deals. So it's a lot of fun and because you get to see certain situations. I do the same thing with the first book, Cedric, and the second book, Roma Santa, Father of Werewolves, where you get to see a lot of sections from both books in different POVs and realize, oh, he was putting on airs, or Cedric was so emotional that he was not listening.
Be
Listening fully
like,
and things like that. So it's been a lot of fun writing it. But I stitch a lot of mythology and dark history together in it. So it had a lot of research and still does tied into it. Um, for example, Roma Santa has a lot of Romulus and Remus history
mhm.
portrayed in it. And I had a reader reach out to me and he says, I know you have a preface where you talk about the mythology and history that you proudly put in and encourage us to search more about these topics and names. He says, but I didn't realize how thorough it was into my classic Roman summer college course. And they asked about what I knew about Romulus Remus. And then I said, well, it's from a fiction book, but it's supposed to be inspired by actual history. So the guy's like, unload. And I start unloading, and he's like, holy cow, like, you know the location, you know who they were at war with, you know their mother's name, why she ended up where she was. And he says, all but the part where Remus is eaten by a werewolf for good.
He said, so you don't need to take this class, and we'll catch you later.
The guy's like, what's the name of this book? I'm like, well, it's more memorable because it puts you like in a vehicle and you're experiencing history firsthand. There's some fun stuff. And that's something I carried over from Rebirth, that initial novel that I was writing. I did a lot of that in that, where you're experiencing historical events unfolding and disasters unfolding firsthand because I kind of wanted I always fought with my history teacher. I'm like, you're missing stuff here, or this isn't right. He's like, why can't you just answer what's in the book? I was like, because the book's wrong and I can prove it.
And I can prove it, she says.
Yeah. No, I would bring in books from the library and I'd be like, because, if I bring outside books, you can waylay that. But if I bring 4 books from the library that prove that this is completely incorrect, history books are written by the victors, as they say.
Well, so you did Cedric, and then where after Cedric did you decide that you were gonna do Rebirth?
That was probably after I finished Roma Santa, and I was like,
Okay.
okay, I've got this down to a pact. Because Roma Santa, I was like, all right, I think it took me about a year to rough out, and then 3 years to revise and edit Cedric. So it took me some time on those. And of course, Rebirth I've been working on since 2001. Um, so, the first novels take some time depending, how dedicated and how focused you are.
Yeah.
So Roma Santa, I sat down and I said, okay, Cedric, I'm getting all this feedback from lit agents and things at this point. Um, I mix a lot of genres, so I'm going to have to consider self-publishing. I have the tools. I'm going to college for graphic design. I know what to do. So I sat down with the Roma Santa. I said, well, let's apply everything I've learned now to the T and stay focused with it and see what I can achieve. I wrote over 80,000 word novel in 75 days, and I revised it in 3 months before I handed it to an editor who only took about a month and a half with it, because I had built a system for myself based off of Cedric and Rebirth. And
Hmm.
after I did that, I said, okay, this works. I now have a strong grasp. I've proven to myself I have a strong grasp for commercial style author writing. Let me go back to Rebirth. Um, and I literally decided to scrap what I had written and write it fresh because that was going to be faster than trying to revise high school writing I was nostalgic for. I'm like, it's hard to change Pressure's words when there's so much emotion attached to it. I
Yeah.
said, let's keep this version off to the side. That's from my personal
Yeah.
nostalgia. And let me retell this professionally how it should have been written. And that's what I did. And that ended up taking a little longer than, of course, Cedric and Roma Santa. But then I kept going into book two, and
Mhm.
then I took a breather, worked on book three for Cedric, and then went back and finished the last book because I had a lot of decisions and stew over what, like, I knew where I wanted the trilogy to end, and
Mhm.
I knew what character it would follow, but then I had to make another decision about, do I also show this other character and swap between the two POVs? Would it be okay to do that after being dedicated to certain POVs in the first two books? So it was interesting. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, book two is a prequel. A little bit. It's a little bit of a prequel because we're seeing the life flash before his eyes of the big brother character and
Mhm.
figuring out how this started. And then we hit book three and we're going back and forth from present day through our main character from the first book to the secondary character, and then seeing things unfold where the character in book two has made the decision he's no longer going to be involved. He's not his brother's keeper, and he's got to let these two people solve this ongoing immortal toxic behavior. Like, they have to figure out what, because he wasn't there. He realizes that his memories have been played with. He's like, I'm unreliable and I'm not going to fix this. I
Yeah.
shouldn't be the one to fix this. So it's a lot of themes like that too in that trilogy, in the Tattooed Angels trilogy, where it's first book is, do you choose your own path or go in the direction that everyone's telling you? Classic
Mhm.
high school, right? Second one is, you're not your sibling's keeper, your brother's keeper, sister's keeper. And then the third one is, do you carry on a toxic family tradition, or do you stand up to it and move on and find a better way? So it's those themes, those lessons I wish I had learned a lot sooner in life, that I kind of pulled into that. So that is how that came about. I know that
Love
was a
that.
long way of answering that.
Look, man, I'm here for a good time, okay?
Well, that I can provide. I can provide plenty of laughs and entertainment.
I mean I mean it makes sense that you have like you keep your high school version kind of like for your memories and all of that stuff, and then you're like, okay, like now I have to be the professional writer that I am to actually tell the story that I actually want to tell.
Yeah, that I
Yeah.
intended to tell. Even
Yeah.
then, you can't see it as, oh God, I'm trashing 50,000 plus words and just
Yeah.
trash letting. No, the story's there, the bones are there, the character
Hmm.
development is there. it's just not portrayed in professional style writing. It's not
Yeah.
using a way of storytelling. And it's so hard when it's a story that has been lost and rewritten a few times over the decade that I had started it,
Hmm.
which is why so many people had binders and copies. Those floppy disks were not dependable back then.
You're
Uh,
correct.
but you know, but it's the whole idea of, okay, well, I have a new understanding about my writing style on a professional level. Let me let me take this story idea and concept and see where it goes. And it ended up being like 93,000 words. I ended up building a lot more muscle on it, and it was very hard and emotional to do this process,
Yeah.
but at the end I don't regret it at all. um it just took a lot, right? And I sometimes give people are like, well, what do you do? What do you do with these old stories or things that you want to do and your writing's changed? You know what the story's about.
Hmm.
You read your old writing and cringe quite a bit while you're doing it and refresh that love for that story. And then you sit down with a blank page and you tell it on
Hmm.
a professional level.
Yeah.
You know, how we write an email to our friend. It's the difference between writing an email to your friend
Hmm.
and writing an email at work, right?
Yeah.
Compose those, how we present those, the care and the level of detail, and we're capitalizing things correctly, we're double checking our spelling. That's
Hmm.
the difference, right?
Yeah.
So that's people are like, oh, but it's so painful and emotional. Yeah, it is, because all books are a piece of you on some level.
Hmm.
It's a lot of, you don't write a book to get rich. And if you are, you're in the wrong business.
Girl, say it again.
It's only the top 1%. Okay, here's a fun fact.
I love
The
fun
USA
facts.
Times best-selling list
Hmm.
and New York Times best-selling list, less than 10% or just above 10%, depending on what year you're doing the stats for, make money on their books.
Okay. Good enough.
Yeah, you can hit that top 100 all day long, but
Yeah.
only a couple of you are actually making money off your book, and that's a scary fact. And then you have, some amazing authors who will never hit that top 100 of that list, because
Hmm.
most of the time you have to pay to get on the list. And I'm not not dumping. If I have that much money to spare, then I am not spending it there. I'll be taking family on a cruise for the holidays. But that make 100K a year easily on their books and events, and then but they're not writing the next great American novel, right?
Yeah.
You have to know, when you decide to become an author, what type of author and what your success is based off of. If you're
Hmm.
basing it off of um these lists, you should be aware people pay to get on those lists. People pay to play
Yeah.
in this industry. You want a Kirkus review, book has the potential of getting a Kirkus review. It's going to cost you between $400 to $700 for a review that may or may not help you. It doesn't guarantee
Right.
sales. I'd rather
Hmm.
take $700 and run a couple of campaigns with Written Word Media or BookBub
Yeah.
and build my
Oh,
newsletter and
love book bub.
oh God, they're so good. And Book Funnel is a good time too. They're very,
Hmm.
very beneficial. Book Sprout is another review
Oh, love
based.
book sprout.
They're so good. So there are so many other things, like you have to decide, and you're going to have to. And I tell people all the time, because I've taught a self-publishing boot camp a couple of times, and pick your own publishing path is a topic I talk about often. They're like,
Hmm.
oh, Val, you've never been published traditionally. I said, not under my name.
Right.
I've ghostwritten for big guys. I've typeset for big guys.
Hmm.
I know what they charge people for that typeset and how much I got paid versus how much they're getting out of an author who's trying to get out of that contract.
Right.
Uh, I know some of the newer contracts are making it where authors can't talk about their book without permission or even get author copies now. And that trend started around just before COVID hit. They were doing that to a lot of the newer young adult authors. There was a whole, these are things I keep my ear on the ground about. I keep my fingers in the pulse. And it's crazy. And it's funny because I was telling, I tell my editor and everyone I talk about these things with, and it was so funny because she had an event and she's like, there was a, random publishing house author there, and she said that is the case with her.
Oh,
She's like, and that's, we're like, where's your book? She goes, oh, I'm not allowed to be here as an author without their permission. What?
that's
How do you
wild.
make money? Oh, I don't make money on my books. I just did a webinar where it's one of the big PR firms for the big guys, and that's what they're telling people. You're not going to make money off your books. And then you go over to Written Word Media has already released their survey results. That'll tell you everything you could possibly need to know to prepare. Don't very few authors get very far on not using a professional editor, not having a newsletter. Like, these are things that kill your career, and only writing one book.
Mm-hmm.
Those 3 things will kill your career right off the gate. If you want to be a genre fiction writer and you want to write for money, prepare to write a lot and really often and at a quality. But don't sell your books short price-wise either, is another lesson, because so many people have been careless and given away free books or books under $2.99 to the point that they've burnt the consumer out, and they don't trust prices under that. It's wild to watch the statistics. And of course, I've been watching the statistics for a very long time. And I'm like, and the things that don't change is newsletters will always be king. So get a newsletter. If you don't have a book out, start your newsletter now. Talk about your journey and how far you're getting. Let them help you stay accountable for your writing and finishing that book.
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry, I got very serious. There.
She was in here preaching, okay?
Preaching.
Grew up in a family of preachers in the blood.
No, like, it was so funny because 5 years into publishing Cedric, and it's one book awards, I'm like cold turkey, book blog, book tours, review tours, whatever I could do to stay within the perimeters of Amazon, not like coming in and wiping everything out. And I struggled for 5 years on an award-winning book to get 16 reviews on Amazon. And I'm like, what is wrong? What am I doing wrong? So as a New Year's resolution, I was like, oh, I'm going to pay for a consulting with a book PR person, Alinka Rotowski is who I used, and have her review and help me come up with a game plan, because my game plan literally is not working for me. Like, let her review everything, pay her to review, and then help me. And the first question she asked me, poor Alinka, she's like, where's your newsletter? It wasn't listed. And he said, people still do those? And she goes, oh no.
She said, oh no.
She gave me the rundown of newsletters. She made it super simple, very ways to automate it to lighten the load and things. She's like, you're a writer, just pre-write out some stuff and content and tell your story, tell a little bit about your world and monsters and break it down, right? I half-assed that advice. I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this.
I don't want to do this.
That was like mid-January. I had that meeting with her. By December that year, I had over 60 reviews on that book and increased my sales by over 30%.
Nice.
And all I did was half-ass the newsletter.
She said, hey,
if
Valerie here.
Please go buy my newsletter is.
Do a newsletter.
Please.
Hey guys, it's me, Val. Please go buy my book. Love you.
I mean, and all I had to do is, like, I tell authors now, because now I preach and teach
Preach and teach.
The power of newsletters. Um, that's my thing. But I tell them like once a quarter, send a reminder. Hey, did you read my book yet? Or my latest, here's some
Hmm.
places I'd love to see you share your thoughts with other readers. I said, those reviews aren't for us anyway. They're readers talking to readers. I'm like,
Yeah,
even the one-star reviews can intrigue someone to pick up a book. And people are like, really, Val? Really?
it's
And
true.
I'm like, yeah, really. I'm like, Sleeping with Sasquatch. I have a one-star review where she says it's like reading a story about the other raunchy woman in a romance book. And I'm like, yes, yes, that's exactly who Frankie is. But she hooks up with Biff the Bigfoot. She she thought she was having her boyfriend took her out to the woods and she's thinking she's gonna have a wild weekend camping and barely wearing clothes all weekend. She even dresses in a bikini and Daisy Dukes ready to go. And he sprays dough and heat and goes hunting for Bigfoot. And she's like, fuck this guy. He's like, don't light a fire. Here's some MREs. And she goes, are we not? And he's like, do you want to give me a blowjob? And she's like, no. Like, no. Toxic relationship. And then she wakes up to bacon and a man serenading her in the camp next door. And she's like, where are you? And he's like, I have to hide because he's having shifting problems. And he's in Bigfoot form. But he's in the camp next door to the Bigfoot hunter who has left his girlfriend ready and rearing to go. So, yes, this was a story about the raunchy other woman in a romance. One star approved.
Look,
Thank you, ma'am.
honestly, one-star reviews are my favorite reviews. I love reading them because I'm like, why didn't you like this
I
book?
tell
Like, tell me why.
I tell
And they're
authors all the
usually
time, go to your
weird
favorite
reasons.
books and look at the one-star reviews for your favorite big author.
Hmm.
Like listen,
Yep.
like I've people are like, oh, well, this is a very toxic relationship. I don't like this. Well, that's exactly what this book's about. So
Hmm.
if you see that one-star review and you realize, oh, it is indeed that toxic of a relationship, then I'm gonna see you're a reader who's saving another reader from having to experience a thing or taking a chance too far of a chance because
Hmm.
I'm not writing a book for everyone. That's
Yeah,
impossible. One, impossible. Two, I don't really want to. I want people who get who my imaginary friends are, and then we can fangirl about them later.
100%.
we, Mm.
Ah,
it's good
all
time.
right. Look, I get it. I mean, it's 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 hard being a writer out here in these streets.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
It can be, but the readers are so fun. And I
Yeah,
love doing in-person events for that reason. So
yeah. It's
I
it's
mean,
definitely a new experience to be an author. 100%.
think my favorite moment for the VC Willis stuff was I was at Pensacon earlier this year, and a man goes, "Do you, oh my?" He's like, "Oh my God, there's a male romance." He's like, "Can I take pictures?" He sends the pictures to his husband. His husband goes, "Yes, go ahead and grab the first book." And I was like,
Hmm.
"Oh yes." I said, "Trust me, I've had a queer friend check. I know." I'm like, but I promise you, it's sincere. And he came back, that was Friday. He came back Sunday, bought the second book, and he goes, "You only have two books out?" And I'm like, "I have more coming, sir. I am writing book three. It's
I can
it's
only
a
write so fast.
he only writes so fast." He started laughing. He's like, "My husband started reading this and he has burnt through the book already." He's like, he is impressed. Like you have found a fan out of him. So that I love getting compliments like that. I also with the honeycombings, I get stuff where they're like pleasantly surprised. You're like, it's funny, but I am fanning myself. I had
Been
one
there.
woman at American Con come up to me. She goes, "I've read Sleeping with Sasquatch 8 times," and her husband's like, "Come back here." He's behind her. I said, "You are welcome, sir." What just
Dude.
so of course Cedric, people are getting history lessons. So it's always fun to see how my stories have impacted people Um, Laddie is and she sends me Instagram recordings and in that heavy Jamaican accent, Dante, Dante, Dante. I'm like, yes. So I love interacting with everyone. It's so fun.
Aw. Uh, no, you're so fun. I love you
I
so
try.
much. Oh my gosh.
Very-
I I just be wanting to add like I literally have all these questions on my screen and I'm like, we've pretty much like gone through like we pretty much gone through them, just like not like
Trust me, we're talking about my books and writing and books and writing, and I can go on forever.
Oh gosh,
Very passionate about it, that's for sure.
hey, that's good. You should be passionate about what you do for a
Yeah,
living.
like this is also something I've talked about to the museum. Is this giant hunk of red jasper that weighs a ton? It's so heavy. And that I used it in the Queen's Incubus. I was like, I should use some rock, this newfound rock inspiration. And I was like, I wonder what red jasper represents. And it's like, oh, it brings eroticism into the room. And I'm like, is that why maybe Honey Cummings is popping this giant hunk of jasper in my fucking room? So, as an ode to Grandpa's giant hunk of jasper, that in the Queen's Incubus, there is a phallic statue made of red jasper in the advisor of inequity's room, Melgost. That is the idol for the Dark Lord,
Of course it is.
and he catches her in an unsavory. And she's like, "Well, I thought it was these other things I was reading in this book about," and he's like, no, no, that is not. That is a religious icon that you have up your rear.
I'm
It's
solid.
hardly. It's hardly. This is why, as Honey, I cannot keep a straight face.
Bro.
I know. I know what ridiculousness that you guys will have to endure in the storytelling I do there.
Honestly, we love some smut with some comedy mixed in. But sometimes it's too serious.
I mean, Honey's for entertainment, and she's more famous than the rest of my name, so I'm jealous. How dare she be more famous than me?
Years. So I okay, question. So I know why Honey is different from Valerie. What is the difference with Valerie and VC?
I didn't want to go too far with the name change because I write fantasy romance with dark elements. That's my jam. I like paranormal and history and
Mhm.
those elements tied in. And you can even see that with Queen's Incubus under Honey Cummings because that's sort of, but it was too erotic and too sexualized to go under my normal name as Valerie. So the difference between VC Willis and Valerie Willis is VC Willis is strictly LGBT content. This
Got
is
it.
where you find male, and maybe in the future I have an idea for like a female pirate story that I kind of want to explore later. Because there's all these stories of female pirates who used to cross dress and marry women and abscond with the wedding gifts. So, like a series about that or something.
That would be
Uh,
fun.
but that's sort of how I divided them out, right? My
Mhm.
normal um, tamer stuff, even though they get saucy too, is under Valerie Willis. My nonfiction is under Valerie Willis. VC Willis is going to be LGBT content. Right now, it's mostly male romance. And then Honey Cummings is very erotic, very sexualized. And there is no fade to black. There is a camera crew, and they're asking legs to be lifted a little higher so we can get the shots. And
All right.
there was before care, there was after care, and she's like, I mean, it's a lot of fun though, a lot
Uh,
of fun. But I
now,
wanted to at least make it easy for my readers if they're not comfortable with those too spicy or LGBT content, they could still and be clear of which one they're grabbing just from the pen name alone. So it was a
Yeah.
branding choice. And everyone's
Okay.
like, are you going to keep it secret? And I'm like, pen names aren't necessarily made to be kept secret. They
Mhm.
can be, especially if you have a lifestyle that's very different and you're trying to keep
Mhm.
that wall up.
Yeah.
But in my case, I'm using pen names to break apart certain hard stop elements that a reader prefers to read or
Yeah.
comfortable to read in this aspect.
I get that. Because I was just wondering. Well, I could definitely tell Honey Cummings just by the name. It's different.
It's very different.
But I saw VC Willis and I was like, and it just automatically made me think VC Andrews. And I was like, I know she's not right about that. So
Oh, no, no.
no, no.
But no, I didn't want to change my name too far from it
I got you.
because the stories and the broodiness and the angst that you get out of both characters and the character development is very much on the same page with both the Cedric series and the Princess Priest Trayvon family saga aspect stuff. So there's vampires. People are sucking people's blood. I mean, in short, Princess Priest is runaway vampire prince falls in love with human priest story, and they're not toxic, and they're both very masculine.
Classic.
And he keeps telling you're a terrible priest. And in book 4, he's like saint. He corrects them. I'm a saint now
Dang.
because that makes it better.
You're a terrible saint. Okay, all right. I guess that, like, I don't know.
He's like, I've ruined you, and now I feel my life is in danger because we're on a ship together.
Lord. Oh my gosh.
There are
All
a lot of
right. Well, Valerie, I feel like I learned a lot about you today and a lot about your writing. I learned a lot today from talking to you.
all sorts of things about the industry, about routines. I unloaded, man. It's been a while since I've had a podcast interview, so I was like super excited.
Hey,
Like I said, I love talking about this stuff all day long. I talk about sharing my imaginary friends, sharing what I do for a living, and inspiring others and giving advice where I can, and just having good laughs
oh,
on many adventures that this life has led me down.
don't worry. I will definitely be hitting you up for some writing advice. I'll be like, excuse me, dear Valerie, please help me. Love, Jenna.
No, absolutely. I encourage people all the time. I try to post on occasion writing advice. I think recently I've posted about foreshadowing in the past, the different types of foreshadowing. I love talking about that. No one talks about it. And how to
That was a
identify
whole
it.
thing we studied in school.
Yeah, and like people I don't remember my teacher like she like glossed over this is foreshadowing. Okay, well, what makes it foreshadowing? What
Hmm.
different types of foreshadowing there are?
Yeah.
And that's like one of the things I kind of break down because that's where I geek out. But I also talk about what I do about how I design, why I design something in my own books. And then I think recently I was like, how did I end up writing? And I have a more detailed step by step of how I made that decision, why I made that decision,
Hmm.
and my thoughts during that. So it's a lot of fun. So I'm doing more videos this year than I've ever done in the past, and I think I'm going to keep it going because you guys seem to enjoy those. I'm getting a lot more engagement from those than I've ever had on anything else. So, and then every once in a while I post like the pumpkin lush cake. I'm like, so I didn't have all the ingredients in classic Val. So here's what I did. And it looks sad, but it tastes great. And people are like, I do this all the
It
time.
looks sad, but it tastes
Misery.
great.
I also post about my family and some of the crazy side stories. So, like, if weird stuff happens,
Well, Valerie, I had so much fun talking to you.
it's been a great time. I thank you so much. I appreciate you being curious about me and my books and giving me the chance to laugh and have a good time.
Girl, I got you. Can you please tell the peeps where they can find you on the socials?
You can find me at willisauthor.com. I have links to all my socials on there, but everywhere you go, Willis at Willis Author should work for TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. You should be able to find me on those. As for my books, you can find them for sale if you want signed copies on my website directly or a TikTok shop. You can also find them at any of your favorite bookstores that you like. Be sure to request me in, and I'm always trying to do events, at least in the Florida region. You'll see me doing events all the time.
Author Valerie Willis, thank you so much for being on Booking It with me. I'm sure I will talk to you again because this
Definitely.
was so fun.
Thank you so much, Jonah.
Absolutely. I'll include all the links to buy Valerie's books and to her website in the description. And then we'll have another great episode of Booking It eventually. But I love you. I love everyone. Please make sure you rate, review, like, and subscribe, all of those fun things. I think that's it. Thanks, Val.
Bye.
Bye.